think we're back. Yeah, I think everything's pretty good now. We need to shift over. Oh, wrong camera. So hello everyone. Time for Workshop Wednesday. I am using the single camera this week because I found out that the CPU on the computer is not really very happy running multiple cameras at once, as was blindingly obvious to anyone watching. But I had to do some tests to ensure that that was actually the CPU and not something else. Unfortunately, that's not something I can just run out and fix immediately. It's a fairly expensive proposition to do a new CPU. Not something. I mean, so hopefully soon, but not a year away or anything. But not something I'm going to do tomorrow. So for now, we're just going to go with single camera setup, which is just fine. Originally, the plan for tonight, and I should actually change the. I'm going to change the description on YouTube. The original plan for tonight was to put together this electronics ball. And I looked through things and realized I don't quite have all the materials I need. Well, I have the materials, but they're not organized in a way that's easy for me to put together. Actually, more accurately, I just really don't feel like putting that together this evening. I had kind of a frustrating evening. Some things didn't quite go as well as I'd hoped. Was expecting something to be delivered today. It got delayed. A lot of first world problems, but stuff that was just kind of all happening at once. It got kind of disappointing. And the electronics project is a little much for me tonight. So instead, and I got some other stuff I got to take care of. So yeah, instead we're going to do some painting and molding and painting, where I have a few molds that I'm going to fill with some stuff, and we're going to find out how that goes. This is my first time trying this. I have no idea how it's going to happen. Sorry. I'm getting a phone call, of course. 1 second. Stand by, please. Hello? Hey. Doing fine. How are you doing? Okay, fair enough. There we go. That took a lot longer than I expected. Got an email for a phone call from a friend who hadn't gotten a chance to nail down a few things. So note to self, I will delete this on YouTube and re-upload it without all that that beginning. So welcome everyone to Workshop Wednesday. As I mentioned prior, although it may not be in this version of the video, I plan to do some electronics component wiring together, but due to various circumstances and just some frustrations with other things, I'm just really not in the right headspace to plug things together. So instead, we're going to do some molding, plastic molding, and maybe some painting. I've got some miniatures over here that I want to do a little bit of work with. I've actually kind of gotten through a bunch of the miniatures I'd planned to paint, but I have a lot of like spare little minis that would be fun to have painted up. You'll notice this is a single camera setup because I found out that the CPU on my Windows PC here, my streaming PC, Yukine, is not up to running multiple cameras at once. So until I get a chance to upgrade that, then this is how we're going to have to do it, one camera at a time. Fair enough. All right, so as I mentioned, I want to do some molding. This is actually a new material I'm going to use today. It is a, I think this is it. Oh, this is a, oh, okay, sorry, wrong. Well, we'll see. So this is a liquid plastic, and I'm going to use that in some molds I've already put together. So this is a rubber molded material, and I just put a 6-sided die in there. That's a mold of a 6-sided die. I also got a mold for a 20-sided die, and it's a little weird because you get the you have to kind of squeeze it to get it out. And then I have this this soldier mold that I ended up having to cut in half and pull him out that way. So it's a kind of a weird system. I'm still figuring out how all these molds work, but this is all just experimentation. So I want to try out this plastic. So basically, sorry, this is talking about how to do liquid rubber, but I don't think this has any liquid rubber. This is liquid plastic. So I think, well, let's see here. Learning as we go. This is, yeah, okay, good. That makes sense. So this is, as usual, two elements. Ooh, that's a little loose. Two elements that you pour together to form the actual material. And you need equal amounts of each. You stir it, put it in the mold. Easy enough. All right, let me grab some cups to stir with. And let's put a little music on. Why not? There we go. Let me know how the music works for you all. Get the audio all set up properly. Maybe a little high. Play around. Thank you, Hakushiki. Much appreciated. I'm very happy to be here after 9 years. Happy that this didn't all fall apart at some point. Granted, there were hiatuses of a year or two here and there, but thank you. Yeah, it's very exciting to be here after all this time. All right, so let's move the camera around. It's all gonna shake and shift all over the place. Move down to here, and yeah, so it's basically just mixing equal parts and then pouring it into the molds. So important with this stuff to use gloves, just because if you get this on your skin, it irritates the skin. Again, it's not gonna burn your hand off, but it is very irritating potentially. So I prefer to just always have the plastic gloves on for this stuff. Hey, Kumo Bear, thank you very much. Thank you for the congratulations. Happy to be here. Doing, like I mentioned, a little weird. Had some disappointments this evening. Nothing major or problematic. Nothing, really sad. Just a couple things not working out the way I expected. But had a good talk with a friend. That's a nice thing. All right, so, and now I'm going to actually make something, which is very exciting. So today we're making molded plastic miniatures. And I might actually, depending on how things go here tonight, I might actually mold some other things. So, show you how I mold stuff. So this is a mold for a mini, cut in half, so you can pull these things out. 6-sided die, 20-sided die. And I'm going to mix up this plastic stuff and pour it in the molds. Now, unfortunately, obviously, it takes, you know, a long time for these things. Does it say how long? Wow, demold solid plastic casting in 15 minutes. Holy free holies. All right, cool. So we can actually, like, pull these out and just get it done. All right. So, wow, cures in 15 minutes. That's nuts. That's awesome. Okay, so it says shake well before using. Let me do that first. And we're gonna actually make plastic stuff, which is kind of exciting. And like I said, maybe I'll mold something. I have some miniature, maybe some dice. I'll put into some molds just for fun. I have no idea what I would actually like mold in general. I might actually like grab some. I don't have a lot of like little minis that are a good size and shape for molding, but I might. We'll see. All right, so let's start with this. I need to puncture this, and I might just be able to use the popsicle stick. There we go. Open that out. So I'm assuming what's going to happen here, basically, is that something over here. But I got a little bit of the material in it, so I'm going to make sure I use the other side of that. Open that up. Come on. There. In fact, just in case there was a little bit of material on that stick, I'm going to go ahead and, ooh, there's some goopy stuff there. I'm going to go ahead and throw away that popsicle stick, because it's hard to tell what's what. So I'm just doing this by eye. Pouring some in, and then mix. Where's my, there we go. Mix thoroughly, I'm sure. Yep, mix thoroughly. It's clear. There's nothing too exciting about this. You know, it doesn't suddenly go pink or purple or anything fun like that. And we'll see what this does. So I'm just going to pour this into these. See what happens. It's very foamy. Whoa! Okay. Make sure that's aligned properly. You'll notice I had some lines on the side of the molds. That was so I could align it up. Let me wipe some of that off. Okay. So apparently, those will be set in, and I'm still kind of blown away by this, 15 minutes. Okay. Let me grab some newspaper. And I'm just going to move this out of the way so I have more space to work with. But we'll come back to that in 15 minutes. And we'll see what that looks like. We'll see if they lie. Whoa, 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 whoa. Actually, I should check. Well, we'll see. Okay, so that's that. Clean some of this stuff off and then strip off these. So another question, should I, let me mold something else. This I've made way too much plastic. Ooh, it's hot. It's very hot. Interesting. Wow. So, and I'm sure that's going to harden up if, you know, it's 15 minutes. Oh, it's sticky. Is it a little bit on there, or is that just my imagination? It's just my imagination. Just my imagination once again. All right, so we're going to keep those off to the side. Then, oh yeah, wow, look, that's already a solid white. Wow, that's fast. Cool, that's good to know. So yeah, so I think I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of A little bit of mini painting. I've got a few things to paint here. And let me start off with one of my favorite D&D monsters. Whoa. Where are they? Not there. Not there. Come back. There they are. The knoll. Kind of hard to see from the angle. So gnolls are like hyena people that are very nasty. And not just nasty in the sense that they are these, you know, monstrous creatures. They are spawned from hyenas that eat the dead. So, yeah, you got that going for them. Where this god of chaos literally looks down on creatures that eat corpses and is pleased by this and raises up these hyenas and forms them into these just savage creatures that know nothing of real pleasure or civilization or culture. They're just all about destruction, which is one of the things that makes them interesting antagonists. And let me do a little bit of D&D geekery here. Something I might want to, I would love to do in the coming year is like run a D&D game, like for you all maybe. Maybe do like a Discord or something, or a Skype session or something where I run D&D for some of you guys. I'll suggest that on the Discord. See if anyone's interested in doing like a occasional thing. I'll absolutely tell you what interests me about D&D, and actually gnolls are a great example of getting into that. So gnolls, because gnolls are essentially a created race, they are spawned by this god. They don't breed. They don't have families, which means they have no need for gentle emotions. They don't need to care. They just exist to do this thing, and this allows them to be a very unnatural enemy, where you cannot negotiate with them. If you trap them, they get frustrated. They don't really want to surrender. In some sense, it's a very typical fantasy monster, but in a world like the worlds I tend to run, where monsters will, if they're overwhelmed, they'll run off. They'll try to escape, or they might beg for their lives. Monsters who will spit in your face instead, and will just keep on wearing you down, can be very, very nasty. Hey, Kaminoko. What I love about D&D is that it is shared storytelling, fundamentally. It is a bunch of people getting around and figuring out a story where the players have these characters in this world, and the dungeon master or game master or narrator is kind of the referee and says, okay, well, there's a bad guy over there. What do you do? And yes, the gnolls are absolutely psychopaths. Complete perfect psychopaths, right? Where there's just, there is no humanity. There is no humanity in the broad sense. There are no gentle or reasonable emotions for them to call on. They are just this thing, which can be just a very weird thing to experience. So in D&D, you get together with your friends and hang out, but you're also exploring this world together. And that exploration is give and take, right? The players can say, okay, I want to go over there. And if the DM hadn't really thought that through, the DM now has to think that through and say, okay, well, maybe there's this over here. Maybe there's that over there. And to me, it is the most fun you can have with your brain, because it is a purely imaginative experience. It is everyone around the room exercising their imaginations to create this experience. That's a great idea, Kaminoko. Maybe we'll do that. A Skype D&D game. Ooh, I love this idea. And just to be clear, what I'd probably do is like, first off, schedule some one-shots. Just a single evening game, a single evening story. So you guys could, get in, play for a couple hours, and then, there's not the commitment necessarily to do it in the future, but as we have time and as we have schedule, I can kind of build that up into something, that might end up being the first session of a longer story. But it can be something that isn't really strongly required. So yeah, that's certainly a possibility. But that's kind of the shared storytelling piece. The other piece is world building. As someone who runs D&D, I can sit down and actually think through a world, think through how a society functions, create people, and populate a world with those people. Now, obviously, you're not creating hundreds of completely three-dimensional people, but you're doing a lot more than you would on a normal Saturday evening, right? You're able to really scratch that imaginative itch, and in a way that is immediately useful to people, right? A lot of people want to be an author. They want to create things, and they try to do that and then realize that the world doesn't necessarily respond to that, right? If you write a book and just throw it out there, nobody may read it. But if you have a D&D group, you create a character, you can throw that in front of other people within a week and get their response to it. So it is a much more immediate, much more satisfying thing in that sense. So that's one of the things I just love about it is, oh my gosh, there's so much you can do there. So a lot of other aspects of D&D. I like the fact that it is set in a heroic fantasy world, and I mean that in the broad sense that this is a world where people help other people. The main characters are assumed to be fundamentally helpful, and I just really like that idea behind characters. So yeah, I think it's it kind of shortcuts a lot of the frustrations I sometimes have with people's approach to speculative fiction and fantasy, where they immediately want to go dark, they immediately want to throw in a twist. And you can absolutely throw twists into D&D, but putting kind of the core of it is, let's do this. Let's save the world. And you can tell all sorts of interesting stories within that framework. And it keeps the characters from doing from just turning into completely evil people, right? Like, I really don't want to spend 3 or 4 hours every week watching evil people be evil. Evil's an interesting thing to explore, but not something I want to live inside. All right, so let's mold some stuff. All right, so one of the problems with molding is shape. You don't want a really weird, complex shape in that mold, because then it's really hard to get it out. You want something that's easier than that. It's one of the reasons why masks are popular to mold, because as long as you got it split in half, that is a more or less, it's curved, but it's a more or less flat shape, as opposed to a weird, complicated. So, something like, what's a good example? Something like this is a weird little miniature I want to paint tonight. But imagine molding this, right? Like, you stick it in there, and you maybe you can cut the mold into pieces where you can pull it out one way or another. But how are you going to pull that out of this? And that's not going to pull out this way. And it's a really nasty shape to try to demold. So we do have some minis here that I was thinking of continuing painting with, but actually they would be a good fit for this. So here's a little hero. And it's going to be blurry just because I get that to focus in. Maybe. Yeah, whatever. So yeah, a little mini person, and importantly, this figure is basically kind of cone shaped, if you will. If you'll kind of squint and look at that shape, right? It's wider on the bottom, smaller on the top. So if we imagine a mold where it's like this, and you pour the plastic in there, that's gonna demold very easily. This will be a few little weird little bits in there, but that's one of the nice things about a rubber mold, is it's more flexible. Same thing or similar thing with this figure where that shield is a little awkward in terms of, oh, there we go. Hey, it kind of bounced in. Maybe if I put it in front of my face, did that help? Get it closer? No, it doesn't like being that close, certainly. Yeah, I need to spend some time. I'm going to actually make a note to play around with this camera and figure out what makes it zoom in or out. But yeah, you see a figure like this, and the shield's a little hard to play around with, to demold, but it's doable. So that's possible. This guy, similarly, is a little like halfling guy. He's got a staff, sort of a Frodo type mini. That might work well. But for example, I have this mini here of a person walking, and with that gap in the legs, that's going to be really hard to demold. So doable, but I'm probably not going to jump into that one. So I am going to do this. Let me grab. Yeah, I'll need some more cups, and I will need a scale. And actually, just for fun, I'm going to pull out some other stuff and just look to see if there's anything else I might want to mold. So I could certainly do like a four-sided die, which is basically a pyramid. That would demold very easily. Might do that. The more rounded the shape, the more awkward it is. So I think I'm happy with that for now. And then I've got some weird stuff I've 3D printed over time, which I might, let's see what would make sense. Remember I painted up this guy the other day. Turned out pretty nicely. Metallic paint. What else could I do here that would make sense? Oh, that's kind of funny. So I 3D printed a game piece, right? That would certainly demold easily. Looking for something unusual. Something remarkable. Oh, actually, that's interesting. Well, I use a lot of material. Yeah. That might get me. It's a statue, like a Greek statue, and the lady's topless. So I don't want YouTube getting all annoyed with me. Oh, that's possible. Here's a chess piece. A little washed out, but that's pretty good. It's going to use up a lot of that plastic, a lot of the molding material. But that would be a good experiment with a larger shape. So I'm very tempted by that. And then what else? Some other things that kind of didn't print very well. So here's a great example of something that would mold really, really poorly. Right? Imagine you got all the rubber inside there. Like, how do you get that out of a mold? Alright, and then I've got, a little figurine there. None of that really makes sense. Okay. Then let's look at a bunch of a little bag of miniatures for D&D. Almost all of these are 3D printed. Or just collected at various times. I don't see anything that's like, again, easy to demold. So I got a brain. Might be fun. But part of the problem too is who needs 5 brains? Well, I could use another brain, but it's a little silly to do that for something I'm probably never, ever, ever going to need a bunch of. Actually, yeah. Okay. So these guys, I might use a lot of in my D&D game. They are these little, I think they're called, I'll figure out. They are basically little like demon spawn. It could be devil spawn. They're basically little lumps of humanoid flesh that are created. Let me find out. I think I painted those on the live stream a while back. We'll go to the monster manual and pull out those guys and see what they look like. It's nice to have a lot of like minion type characters. Yeah, I think these are demons. Am I missing them? Or is it just they're supposed to be at a different representation? I think it could be different representation, but let me just check. Oh no, there we are. So the Muir, one of those guys there in the middle, and yeah, it's sort of a lump of flesh. So basically, if you do not do very well in life, if you make poor choices in life, oh, I forgot the scale. You might very well end up in hell, and you may arrive as more or less like a writhing maggot, or a little insect, or as one of those things, which is kind of this weird lump of flesh that can kind of move around, but is barely, a thing, and you get ordered around by other devils, or by devils, and if you do a really good job of what they tell you to do, they can promote you to being a devil, and so you actually have, real limbs and all that kind of stuff. And it's this wonderful punishment for evil souls, because suddenly you're in this hierarchy where you're on the lowest man on the totem pole, or lowest entity on the totem pole, because gender is weird in hell. And now you're being pushed around, and you may find all these creatures really, really creepy and terrible. But like the only way for you to actually get agency is to do what they tell you to, and like try to do it like really, really well, and you might rise into their hierarchy. Anyway, so one of the things about a game like D&D is it's nice having a lot of little. There we go. Thank you for popping into there. It's nice having a lot of like little minion type enemies to play around with. What happens if I pop at? Okay. Go down. Go up. Whatever. So yeah, and this would demold pretty well. So I'm definitely gonna do him. All right. So yeah, like I said, I need a scale. 1 second. That's funny. I pulled it out of the drawer and then just like set it down on the counter. It's like that's not very helpful. Okay. We can actually try to demold these now. So before we get into that, yeah, Kuma, the mythology and the other nice thing about D&D is you can change any of this. Like none of this is tied down. So you can decide that hell is a place of one kind of devil, and they just sort of poke people with pointy forks for eternity, and like that's all hell is. Or you can have all this lore and background, and it changes over time. Okay, so let me grab my okay. So it shrunk dramatically in there. Will it come out? Yeah. That's a D20, which I recall required a little bit of effort to get it to come out, but it came. So I'm just gonna, let me show you what I'm doing. So yeah, there's our D20. I'm just gonna kind of work it out. So that is a problem, is they're gonna have that really funky side. So this is not gonna be a rollable die in any useful, reasonable way. It's not really coming out. I was able to get the original die out, which was stuck in there a little bit, but that's really unhappy. All right, let's move over to the 6-sided die, because that should pop out pretty easily. Oh yeah, that's nice. That's no problem there. Wow. That is a 6-sided die. You can't really see the numbers in it. Just it's white on white. But that's a really effective die. There is a little bubble on one side. Annoying. Hey Sanjay, thank you very much. No problem being late. I actually started late myself. So yeah, that's a die. Cool. So what am I doing? Yep, sure enough. So this is solid. Throw away. Let me see what I can do with that. Okay, so here's that soldier. Oh, he broke. Oh, he didn't even go down. Okay, so that's a problem. So I think that soldier shape. Oh, that broke off. Okay. So that soldier shape just was not a good fit. Oh no, that shrunk too. Gosh. Yeah, not a good fit for this. Oh, yeah, that's just shattering. Okay. Good to know. So this is what that soldier. I mean, it's nice detail. It just broke off in the mold, and it didn't go down into the bottom, it looks like. So basically, okay, this is a. I'm gonna actually throw away this mold. This just didn't work. Fair enough. But yeah, thanks for the congratulations. I'm very happy with that. I'm still kicking. So yeah, I think I might do some more of these. So one of the problems with doing this is that there are only so many. I didn't get my cups either. You know, you mix up a very little bit of this and pour it in, and then it's gone. Like you don't want to make up a large amount because it doesn't keep for any length of time. All right, let me see if I can't get that 20-sided die out of that at least. I forget what I did before. I think I just kept pushing, and eventually, like, one of the edges popped out. I was able to sort of maybe grab it, pull it out. I'm doing this based on somebody who actually did this, and they said, yeah, it takes a little bit of work, but it did come out. And this plastic is actually designed to shrink a bit, or obviously shrink significantly. So maybe in future, what I'll do is when I mold this, I'll add an extra little bit on here, an extra little cavity, so I can pour plastic in there, and it'll fill that cavity a little bit, but when it shrinks, it'll shrink out of that. Things coming out, go? Yep. That is something I'm quite proud of. Man, this is not coming out. I mean, ideally, I would have cut around the middle, right, and done it that way. But I wanted to try this, which they said should work, but it's not working very well. I grabbed like a. I just don't want to puncture the mold material. Okay, so that doesn't want to come out. Okay, well, fair enough. I'll probably end up having to cut open that mold. I wonder, actually. I should be able to slice into this mold. Just, like, cut a gash in here. Enough to pull this out. And then when I can just close the mold back up. Let me grab a knife. Okay. There's just a steak knife. And I'm going to try. Maybe, yeah. I'm just going to cut into this mold material. I'm going to try. It doesn't want to cut. Oh, it went in there. So I'm just sort of cutting down the side. Yeah, and I think that will hold. It will hold together when I'm actually molding. We're going to find out in a few minutes here, I think. It's still not enough to pop it out. Oh, definitely better. It's just holding on. Alright, I'm going to try the other side as well. One of the nice things here is, again, I don't need extra plastic D6s. So this destroys the mold. Okay, I'll try something else some other time. But this might make that popper outable. Come on, what's the... Okay, it seems stuck to the bottom. Does not want to roll out of there. I should be able to more or less rotate that in place. Just keeping it in there. Alright. first was the review of the Haruhi Suzumiya light novel. Cool. I stumbled across a video on it. Nice. What was the paper on? Like what were you? What was the thesis essentially? What was the point you were trying to make? I'd love to read more sort of scholarly analysis of Haruhi Suzumiya. Come on. No, that is... Okay, that's interesting. It's like stuck on the bottom. At this point, I'm tempted to just, like, you know, destroy the mold. Just to find out what's going on in there. I'm gonna have to. Come out. Yeah, I mean, plastic is supposed to demold very easily. So something's going on here. Alright. What is it stuck on? Yeah, it's just fused to the bottom of this mold. Oh, there it goes. Interesting. So, good news is, that is a very clear D20. 20-sided die. Yeah, again, you can't see it just because of the thing, but all of the numbers are very clear. Oh, there's a little bit of something got in there, got stuck, but unfortunately, one face is a real mess, the bottom of that. So, okay, fair enough. The resin didn't shrink nearly as much, so that's good to know. All right, so like I said, I want to do a D6, and then actually, so I think the first thing I'm going to do is do another D6 and see if I can do this with a very small amount of plastic. So that's worth experimenting with a bit. Yeah, the first review I uploaded was for Macross Frontier back in the day. Hard to believe that was a decade ago, that show. But it was. Protect the hands. Done in the old home with the old setup, one of the old setups. Okay, so I'm just gonna pour some of this stuff. You can't really see. So we're gonna do another mold here in a minute, but I'm very excited about the 6-sided die. So I want to do a few more of those. All right, and again, I just need a few drops practically of this stuff. More or less eyeballing it. Okay. And we stir. Yeah, I've got some of those gloves. Don't want to touch anything else. Now that that's kind of safely contained, I'm okay with not using that. So let's stir it up. Again, it stays clear in there. That's good to know. So really, if I were doing this, like if I were making a bunch of dice, for example, I would mold up probably, 6 or 7 dice, and then do them all at once, because it's just gonna be really hard to get, just enough plastic for one die at a time of this material. Okay. That's better. I'm kind of tempted. Why not? I'm gonna see if this causes that die to goop out the side at all. And I'm gonna make sure I fill that up nice and full. Maybe overdo it a bit. Okay, yep. So there's the 20-sided die. Move it over. And the 6-sided die. Move that over. And just see what happens. Okay. So, look at what kind of god or ruler Haruhi would be looked as, benevolent, etc. That is interesting. Yeah. There's a lot of places you could go with is Haruhi actually a god? What would that mean? Alright, so we know in about 15 minutes, those molds will be done, which is really, really cool. So let me go ahead and mold up some of this other stuff. I'll show you kind of my process there. So, this is different though. So the base, remind myself, oh, this is instructions. And you can measure this in multiple different times, multiple different ways, by weight, 10 to 1. Okay. So basically, I'm going to mix up a bunch of this stuff on here, and I need 10 times as much of this base by weight as this stuff by weight. I'm going to mix that up. Nothing wrong with using your love of anime for papers. I mean, when I was in college, there was a woman there who she definitely did that with some of her attention, and she realized, like, it doesn't matter in the sense that it's not like the teacher's going to say, ooh, you said something about something that's way outside of normality. Like, that's all that happens. Like, professors love something that is a little different, that takes something unusual. Yeah, then, they're in academia, so they kind of like reading things that are outside what people normally write about. You can go too far with that, obviously. And trying to seriously write a paper about how Warhammer 40K is the most brilliant world ever might raise some eyebrows. But if you make a point, like, it often works. All right, so I'm gonna mold some pretty big stuff here. Do I want to mold that chess piece? Yeah, I do, because it's big. So I need to mold a lot of it so that the chess piece is pretty big relative to the side of that. So I'm going to basically make up, I'll probably end up having to do 2 cups worth, because I will need several cups for this. So this guy is, let's just going to look at him relative to the cup. So yeah, that's going to need to almost fill the cup. All right, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go a little crazy here. I'm just going to use this cup for that. So this is going to be, and so you use, as you can tell, pretty much entirely base. Wow, you can use a lot of base. Base. That's 6.4 ounces, so now I need 0.64 ounces of the other. I'm going to go through a lot of gloves. So 6.4, so we need 0.64, just kind of get that in my mind. Alright, reset. And, need to pull that off. I will definitely be cleaning this steak knife very, very fully. Very carefully. I probably shouldn't be using a food grade knife for this. No. Should have used like a some disposable. Oh well. So 0.64 of the catalyst. There's gonna be most of it. 0.6. Almost 0.60. 0.65. All right. Then we mix. And I'm actually gonna move that off of here, so I don't accidentally get material on the scale. And this is going to be actually the mold. This will be the mold of that thing. And this is kind of this weird pink goop. And then we'll see if I have enough for these other things I want to mold. Wow, this is a lot of mold material. And this is why I try this, to find out kind of, okay, that's how much that uses. I'm not one of these people at this point in my life where I went out and bought 10 pounds worth of this mold material. Like, oh, I'll mold a bunch of stuff. I'll use this up and see where I'm at, and then I will try more. And I go in kind of phases with these sorts of things, where it's like, I'd rather do some now, and then order a little bit more, do some later, and then once I really get a feel for it, I can decide, oh, okay, I now know what I want to do. But since I don't have any big projects, people often get a little too excited by these projects and like, well, I can buy it in bulk and get it cheaper, yeah, but then you end up with 90% of that material sitting around in your basement for the rest of your life. honestly, it is better to start small and then go from there. Okay, so we've done it to this goopy consistency, sort of this, almost this melted ice cream consistency. And then I'm going to put my my guy in. I'm just going to dump him in. So basically the idea here is he just goes in like that. I'm going to put him in a bit of an angle and just push him down. And gravity will basically take care of the rest. Although I'm going to assist gravity. I'm going to try to push him down to the bottom there. Okay. So that is him. Hopefully he's reasonably centered. And that is that. And transmutation circle and clap my hands. Exactly. Okay. So let's move on, and we'll try the other die, the four-sided die. One of the problems with four-sided dice is that the way that they work is you have the numbers on different corners, so if it lands like this, that's a 4, right? And so the problem is, no matter what shape I put this down in, one side will not have those numbers on it. They'll have to be basically drawn in by hand, which is, you know, unfortunate. But, all right, let's reset that. And I'm not going to need much. I can just see that. So I'm just going to do this. And like I said, I'm more or less using the base as my idea for how much I need. And then so I fill it up so that if I just had the base, and that was in there, I'm going to need a little more base. And then when I add the agent, that gives it a little more volume, which then fills it up to, all right, so 2.2. Which then makes sure it is enough to actually do the thing. Oops, there we go. So a little bit of extra headroom for the die. Okay. So that mixes up a lot quicker when you have less material. And I think I'll have enough for my little mains, whatever it's called. Oh, the lemure. That's what it's called, a lemure. Hopefully I'll have enough, we'll see. In fact, what I might do, let's see. Do I want to, I think I do. I'm going to do the lemure instead of the D4. I don't think I'll have enough for both. I really want to have that. So let me add in, maybe I'll add in 1 more ounce. Half an ounce. Be enough. Yeah. Half an ounce of the base. And an ounce of the base. Yeah. Can't do both with this amount of material. Yeah, definitely not. And then I need 1 ounce, 0.1 ounces of the agent. Okay. So that should give me enough for my little monster guy. And so once that's done, in fact, we should have another D6. That's cool. That's just so cool. Right? Yeah, that's pretty much empty. I might pour that out and just see how much I get out of that base. See if I can make it, you know, enough for the D4. And then I'm gonna put my little mini in there. And like before, I'm gonna more or less just push him down. Ah! Oh no, poor guy. He's getting sucked down into the gunk. Not gonna last very long. Okay. He goes over here. And again, that'll take like a day to work. Oh, I wanted to. Yeah, let me just see what happens. Well, we might as well just try out the rest of this material, and like if there's not enough, then okay, we just throw it away. But it would be nice to kind of use up the rest of this. Whoa! Knocked over the bottle of agent. Fortunately, that won't have a problem. Okay, so we reset the scale. Ooh, got a little bit of gunk on there. Clean that off. And I'm going to actually not just pour it in, I'm going to scrape any extras below. Ooh. Scrape every last bit that I can out of here. Kind of hoping against hope, but it's one of those things where, at worst, I sacrifice a paper cup. And at best, I get to mold one more thing. And so that is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. The base is pretty gunky. So it's wet glue consistency to the base. Or icing. Yeah, it's actually more like icing. Yeah, that's not enough. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. Well, tell you what. What have I got? I've got, like 9/10 of an ounce. Look at my die. No way. But you know what? Just for fun. Reset. Find some more agent. Appropriate amount. Yep, that's it. Mix that up. And we'll just see if I can... I'll just throw the dye in there and see what happens when it goes to the bottom. I'm almost positive. Or do I have anything that's really, really shallow? Yeah, hopefully no homunculi. That would suck. Have a homunculus suddenly show up. What have you done? What have you done? Yeah, that looks way too shallow. But like I said, I'm just gonna dump it in there. And push it down in. Push it down in. No, nope. That's already at the bottom. There's definitely not enough. All right. So what I'm gonna do is pull it out. It's all gunky. I'm just gonna put the dye just on a piece of paper over there. So I pulled it out. Now basically the mold rubber will cure around that dye, and then I'll just scrape the mold rubber off. Cool. So that's fine. I'll put on my sort of next list to get a little more molding agent and play around a little bit more with other stuff. But I'm perfectly happy with the fact that I managed to get enough to mold both the chess piece and the other thing. But I definitely like things that are that big and narrow. I would not want to do frequently because it just uses up so much of that material. Okay, we learned that much. That's cool. Let's get back to our molded stuff. Ooh, so that didn't shrink as much as I thought. There's quite a bit of plastic on there. Hey, shy nerd girl. Yeah, well, Okay, so that pops out. Can I pull that plastic off? I can. Cool. Little extra plastic on that side of the die. But there's our demolded die. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, that's I'm happy with that. I'm got some dice now, man. Plastic dice. That's cool. Let's see what happened to the D20. So the good news is it did not goop out. Am I okay on this? Yeah. Will it pop out this time? Not easily. But it doesn't appear to be stuck. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, see. Some of the plastic did goop out into that wad, but it's not too bad. Man. The mold is just holding on to it. There it comes. So, there's a little bit of plastic that I would need to trim off on some of the sides. I could probably use sandpaper to sand that down. But yeah, that's a D20. Definitely need to sand that a little bit. Cool, cool. That's good to know. There's a lot to do with that. The plastic is... It's definitely not like the kind of plastic you'd expect to get in a store. It actually feels a little heavier, maybe? Maybe about the same weight, but it's a little... I don't know, it feels... not quite as hard. Obviously, it is a solid object. You know, it's not a gummy dye, but that would be cool. And you can do that, by the way. You can get like food-safe mold stuff that do that. Thanks, Shy Nerd Girl. I'm very happy about that. We'll see what the 10th anniversary is like. Imagine that. But yeah, so definitely everyone tune in for the Friday live stream for a chance to win awesome stuff. Model kits and a clock, an anime clock. And that framed Miyazaki cell. I better not be late for that one myself. All right, so we were gonna. Ooh, that's right. Okay. So let's clear a few things off. Get them out of the way. Okay. So I don't need to. I mean, obviously I can keep on making more dice, but I'm happy with that right now. That was a good test of the process. If I want to make more, I can always make more. Let's move on to... That's good to know, though, actually, that I can do the 20-sided die if I just overfill it a little bit. Okie doke. So, move on to some painting, ladies and gentlemen. Because I'm in the mood to paint. One of those days where that just feels good. So, as I mentioned, I've got these nasty knoll guys. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to move to a new piece of paper, because that's got gunk on it, and I don't want to get gunk. I do not want to get gunk, excuse me, on what I'm working on. 3 guesses how long ago I got this flyer. I know it's a really tough test. So, okay, like I said, I want to do these knoll guys. So they're these nasty hyena dudes, and one of the reasons I showed you the artwork was to give us all a sense, and let's show that artwork again, is to remind myself of the color scheme. Gnolls are very dark gray with some blue in them, actually. Very interesting coloration there. And that's the canonical thing, and I don't need to follow that exactly. But I like the idea of the dark gray with maybe a little tinge of blue, just to make it unique, make it distinctive. But let's also do a little bit of research here. I can make this work. Let's see what do. That one? Yeah. Let's do a little research into hyenas. What hyenas actually? Okay, so hyenas actually are spotted beige and brown. Interesting. Now, obviously, I don't have to go with exactly with that item. That's good to know. We definitely want to go with a dark color scheme, maybe some browns, maybe some beige. But I think I'm going to go with that basic color scheme. All right. I'm going to start with that black with tinge of blue, or the dark gray with tinge of blue, maybe. We'll start there. If I can actually get my hand in the glove. All right. Oh, I need paints. Right there. So I've got my black, my white, and my blue. And my little bowl. So we know that black overwhelms white. So we're going to go ahead and start with white. I'll need a fair amount for all these guys. Get some more white. White, as Bob Ross likes to call it. Love Bob Ross. That's maybe a bit much. Okay. So there's the white. We'll add some black. I'm going to need a new popsicle stick. I get the feeling I'm going to sacrifice a lot of popsicle sticks tonight. I'm going to start with go very light on the black, so to speak. The minimum on that. And it's already a significant gray. I think I want to go darker on that, which is fine. Glad to start basic and then go from there. Darken that up. Is that a good null? I think that's a good, yes, it seems like a good null base color for those creatures. That give us kind of that dark gray, or really a medium gray tinge. And then we'll, like I said, we'll add a tinge of blue. Just to give them something interesting. Try that much blue. See what that does. Yeah, I don't want this to be I don't want it to look blue. I just want the blue to tinge it. Yeah, that's kind of nice. It just gives the gray a slight variation. All right, I'm happy with that. I can barely tell there's any blue in there, but if you say there's blue in there, it's like, oh, yeah, I see it. Alrighty. Where's the lid to the blue? Can I throw it away or something? Oh, there it is. Okay. So, as with so many other things, I'm just going to get a large brush and just slather paint onto these. And that will be my start to all of them. And probably by the time we're done painting the last one, this one will be dry enough that we can do something with it. Add some detail. I'm thinking maybe the way we'll do this for that color scheme is that these gnolls are wearing this loincloth, and the loincloth might have that brown, that tan color. I think they have some little armor on them too, and so that might be where we pull in that sort of hyena-like color. I even hint that they skin some hyenas for their clothes. That's pretty metal. That's pretty crazy. And I always like to just completely fill it with this base coat so that any weird little imperfections at least isn't white. To me, that just really adds to your figurine. These are all 3D printed. And there are a few imperfections in the 3D print. On some of them, they have a little bit of material on them stuck. Thanks, Kuma. Appreciated. Have a good night. Yeah. So I think what I'll do tonight is I will paint up these gnolls. I'll do at least, I'll try, depending on how long it takes them to dry. Actually, you know what I'll do? I will do the base coat of these gnolls. And I want to go on and work on that really crazy worm-like thing I showed you before. This guy. I want to paint him up. I think he's like a light green coloration. Very weird. And so I will do you know, 1 or 2 coats of him, and then come back to the Knolls, maybe do some changes there, or some touch up there, to give them that extra coloration. Normally, so my current process with figurines like this is I do a base coat like this, and then I go back over and I do like clothes, and then, which I probably shouldn't do in this order, and then I just realized, and then I go back in and I add, I brush on a light coat onto like the skin to give it some variation. So might brush this with some light gray, just to indicate, you know, no one has exactly the same shade of skin everywhere. So I like to brush that on, but really I should brush on that before I do the clothes. That would be smarter. Maybe I'll do that this time. Okay. I'm actually very happy to have these. Like I said, I love Knolls, and it's been very hard for me to find a version of these guys that is 3D printable, and that is doable on a normal kind of a printer. And the one guy who normally prints these, or normally designs monsters like this, he has a whole bunch of them. He did do a Knoll back in the day, maybe a year or 2 ago, but it was really hard to print. Like he said, it was hard to print. And then, I don't know, maybe a few weeks ago, well, before then, I downloaded it and I tried it several times. I just could not, and they kept breaking. They wouldn't stick on the bed, or they would need all this weird material on them to get all the little details right, and that material would break off. So I kind of despaired. And then a few weeks ago, like I said, he released a revised Knoll figurine. And I pulled that in and printed it, and it's still a little tricky, but it's definitely doable. That's all I wanted. Okay. So here are our things. I do like this color. It's odd. Having this kind of color. It's a little more wolf-like than hyena-like. So in fact, what I might do, when I go back in and brush over, I think I'm going to brush over, I'm going to brush over a tan color. Like a tan or beige color. And I'm going to go fairly heavy on that. So I want to obscure a fair amount of this dark color, but the dark color will be kind of a fundamental that will deepen that color, and again, it'll give it some variation. But I think that will give it. The problem with these is they look a little bit too much like wolves, and they're not. They're hyenas. They're hyena guys. So that is what I've decided, and I'll figure out a nice tan color by combining things. It has been very interesting, starting with base colors and then building your own colors. I was a little intimidated by that when I first tried, but somebody pointed out, you know, very little in nature is a pure blue or a pure red. Like practically nothing is just a straight up version of those colors. So unless you want to buy, you know, 200 colors, then it makes sense to at least mix up, you know, at least add a little bit of another color to whatever color you're using. And that's been very true. It's served me well. And you know, you don't need to get very exact shades, but it's worth doing. What else I missed? A few places. Didn't get the back. One nice thing about this decision to come back over and revise the coloration is that, you know, if I don't get every single millimeter or micrometer, I guess. What is the smaller unit than a millimeter? But if I don't get every single speck with the gray, when I come back over with the beige, I can just make sure to dot in that spot. with the beige. I'll definitely have to come back in with some white. I've tried in the past, like, avoiding all the white plastic around the teeth, but it's just impossible. I certainly do not have the painter's skill for that. The fine motor control. And I need to slow down. One of the secrets that I didn't mention in any of my videos is that I am trying to pledge, trying different processes to speak more slowly. Because that is a thing I actually can do if I really think about it. And I have found that when people listen to me speaking more slowly, they pay more attention, and my ideas come through much more clearly. And also, I can figure out what I'm going to say better. It is essentially better all around if I speak at about half the rate, half the speed that I normally do, maybe even a quarter. And it turns out that's okay. That works. Okay, so like I said, we're gonna let these Noli guys dry. I'm gonna move on to this crazy guy. That is something nuts, and I'm gonna show you. Let's do another tab. These are called Therin. I'll try to type it correctly now. Yeah, weird green creatures from other worlds that have invaded the D&D realm. And they're going to be baddies in one of my upcoming storylines, I hope. So I want to do that. Yep, Christmas in March. Hey, Underdog. Glad you could join me tonight. My fingers are kind of sweaty, so this glove does not go off. Wow. That's funny. So, yeah, that's okay. That's totally fine there, right? Like, I can do that. Jeez. I'm gonna have to, okay? Under the glove. Dry that off. Christmas in March, if only. Can I get this on? Opening music? Huh. I do have some music going on in the background. That's weird. Maybe it's doing something weird with the computer audio. Bizarre. Okay, so I want these guys to be green. I think what I'll do is I will rinse this off, so let me give you guys something to look at for until then. Do I have something fun here? I don't think any of you saw I think Kuma Bear probably did. Both play. Weird. I don't have any other things going on in the background of the window. Bizarre. Okay. Maybe. 1 second. No, that's the same. Oh, you know what's going on? Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's what's going on. Yep, you're right. That's funny. Sorry, you're right. I had the wrong thing. So, okay, let me show you guys a little bit of a panel, and I'll be right back. Gigantor, by the way, is the first giant robot anime series. Sorry, robot, not robot. He is actually part of, in the show, he is part of a program in World War II to build giant robots to fight the Allies. And they never made one that worked. He is the 28th prototype, which actually worked, but they managed to get working like August of 1945. So they had to like scrap the entire program. And then, you know, in the far future year of 1980 or whatever, they revive him and he fights bad guys. So you think this is 1963, and they're already telling stories about what do we do with these technologies and these things that we created as part of this war, but are still useful. It's fairly heavy for an anime series. Another important thing about Gigantor is that Gigantor is not piloted. There's a little kid with a remote, and he calls in Gigantor, and Gigantor flies in and beats up the bad guys. This is fun, but as you can imagine, a somewhat limiting concept for a story. Gigantor is literally a Deus Ex Machina, right? He just flies in at the end and saves everyone. You know, there's nothing else going on there. So while this was the pattern of Giant Robot series moving into the future, it quickly became apparent that you couldn't tell very many interesting stories with that story structure. Well, we started getting more of these anime series. A perfect example of anime of the 60s and 70s would be Doraemon. Doraemon is about a robot cat from the future that comes back to this boy who will invent him at some point in the future. Nobita there in the lower left. Okay, we're back. Thank you, Kaminoko. That is very true. I just realized that I had the browser window on a scene that had music on the background. So I will add that before I forget. I'll add a scene that has just the browser in it, so I don't accidentally do that again. That'd be nice. Okay. All right. So now I have a thing that will do that properly. Okay, good. So, getting back to this guy, and I want to paint him. Like I said, he's green. So I'm going to start with a light green base coat. Actually, do I have? Ooh, I have sparkly green. So instead of mixing up that, I'm going to use the sparkly green. I think it's going to need some. It's old paint. So we're going to see if this is actually even usable. If not, good excuse to get rid of it. Okay, yeah, that's going to be fun. But that's a little too dark, I think, so I'm going to add some white. And again, I'm going to change every color at least a little bit. And so I'm going to lighten that up with some bunch of white. And yeah, that's taking some of the white. Good. So this paint is still usable. It's very thin. Very thin. Which might be a problem for this guy because that red is going to show right through. May need multiple things. That's a good base coat of that light green. Very light green. In fact, it might be a little bit too light. I think I went a bit too far with the white. It looks a little better than that on camera because the camera's a little washed out. But let's add a bit more green back in. Need it more even. Whoa! Didn't need to do that much, but that's what I got. Okay, what do we got here? I end up with huge amounts of this color. Ooh. No, that's nice. Again, it's way more than I need, but okay. I ended up with a nice sort of a seafoam green there. Alrighty. And I need a brush for this. Grab. I thought I had another brush around, but apparently not. Ah. Yeah. Nice big brush here for this. Move some of these guys out of the way. And like I said, I'm just going to see what happens when I brush this on. And it doesn't take very well, so I'm definitely going to need multiple coats of this green to make this work. Yep, yay sparkles. Sparklies. And he will end up with a bunch of different, or it really. They are not he's or she's. They are weird creatures from other dimensions that do not reproduce in any sensible way. But I am going to go ahead and give him a lot of different color variations, I think. Different coats of things. So the goal here is not to make this green. It is just to give it a fairly even coat of this color. And because it's so wet, it's so thin, it's going to look really weird. But I have to live with that. I'm going to go ahead. I'm actually not going to paint inside the mouth, because I know that I want the inside of the mouth to be a very different color. So there's no point in my putting some green in there. But pretty much everything else. You notice they have 4 arms on their head, like arms with hands on their actual maws, which is pretty creepy. But definitely gonna need multiple coats. And he's kind of bursting out of the ground here, which is a little funky. So I'm okay with just getting that like that. You know, getting some paint down in there, and you know, it can get on the rocks because I'll paint the rocks later. All right, so that's a decent first coat. Again, it's a terrible first coat in a sense, but with this thin paint, there's not much I can do. All right, so there's the beginning of our Ferim, covered in some paint. Put him to the side. Just put him over here. There we go. He'll be very easy to knock over, so I don't want him like right here. All right, we'll come back to him later. I don't think I'm gonna need green actually on my fingers because of that. So that's good. So I can keep on using this glove. Let's go back to our knolls. They are pretty much dry now, I think. Yeah, good. So now I can go back in. Like I said, I wanted to have this beige. So I know I have a brown color. Yep. So I'll add to that some white and some yellow. And I think I'm just going to do that right here. I'm not going to use the bowl, because I want to reuse that bowl for the rest of it. So I'm just going to grab some of this brown. Put it down, so to speak. Put down the brown. A little more. Ooh, I'm low on this brown. Take a note of that. So there's the brown. And then... ooh, actually. That is just a white set. Good. I can use some white. Put some white in there. That feels about right. And then we want some yellow, and we'll definitely go with a fresh stick of the yellow. Like, I feel bad about using too much of these sticks and just like, you know, going through them too fast. That's right, and the yellow is very thick. So let's do this and see what we end up with for our hyena color. And hyenas have a pretty light tan color. So I'm going to aim for something kind of like that. Let's go back, see if we can get our browser correct now. That should have the correct audio now. So our hyenas, interesting. It's hard because they're spotted, but I'm okay with that. I think that's a good starting point for our color. Like I can brush that on and it's gonna look right. Okay, so let me grab another paintbrush and find one of these guys. Yeah, he's pretty dry. And everywhere I see him, I'm gonna grab a little bit of this beige and brush it on very lightly as this interesting sort of color variation. Just sort of push it on him, push it on the there. And I'll use this as kind of my starting point for him. Oh, okay, they have a little shoulder pad. Interesting. So that will get some metallic treatment. So yeah, I'm not trying to completely cover it with the beige. I want to keep the gray sort of visible. Oops. That is a not dried bit of gray there. Okay, I'm coming back to him. I think he's close to the dried, maybe? No, still? Well, they're still fairly wet. I mean, they're not wet, but they're kind of tacky. I think he's doable. So I'm just trying to brush on this beige. And one of the nice things about doing that is that if I decide, okay, you know, I want to go heavier on the beige, I can always do that. I can always come back in and brush on even more of the beige. But to start with, this gives us something different, something visually nuanced in terms of color. And I think that's a good idea. That's a good thing, is to have something that's not just, oh, this is a gray miniature, or this is a beige miniature. It's like kind of both, and then you can always go back in and push it one way or the other. Okay, and then do the head. And so once I've done this sort of brushed coat, I'll sort of pull back and look at it and decide if I want to go heavier. And also, to that point, not all gnolls look the same. Not all hyenas look the same. The coloration is going to vary from one to the next. So I might decide that one's going to be a lot more beige than another. In fact, the last one I might end up brushing, making him, or changing the color, changing this beige. Just giving him his own kind of variation on the color. Because again, why not? Everyone's different, and since I am painting each of these individually, I might as well paint them individually, make them actually individuals. Alright, so just getting these feet done. And then, like I say, we can kind of pull it back and look at what we've got and decide if we want to push it very heavily one way or the other. And you know, once we add the leather for the loincloth and the metal for that for the armor, that will also change it significantly. I go a little heavier on the beige there. Make sure it's kind of everywhere. Okay. Get up in there. Make sure I get that head covered. Or at least touched up somehow. Okay. So here's our somewhat beige knoll. As soon as I do that, the camera bounces out. There we are. It's not like to stay focused close up. But that's the idea, is that color scheme. And that's pretty good. I think what I'm going to do is every knoll will have a slightly different amount of this beige. And that's going to be, this one is going to have the least amount of beige. So this amount of beige is good for him. But I will add more beige on the next one. And maybe... yeah. So here's the other guy I was doing. He already has a little bit more than him, than the other one I was working on. So let me go ahead and brush some more of this beige onto him. Actually got some spots when I didn't fill that out. So again, you get some more beige. I'm not sure where that armor is. I'm just going to brush over that. And get some brown on him. Yeah, I like that idea, that we're going to have a fairly wide variation in color here from one knoll to the next. And that will give that idea of, and also has the a little bit of a story hint, in the sense that since these things are spawned by an evil god, then their genes do not mix. They are not creating variations or uniformity through breeding. So they may look wildly different from each other. I mean, not wildly, but significantly different. It kind of depends on which hyenas happen to be in the area and what the god decided to do that day. And that's kind of interesting. I think he's going to have more on his feet, because he didn't really get his feet very well with the gray, so we'll add some more beige to it. That's not a bad thing. Yeah. So there's that, and we do the tail on the back. Tails did not print out extremely well, which is unfortunate. But that is kind of life. Life in the fast lane. Life in the painter's lane. So yeah. There's that. Brush this back here. And let's see, we have... Okay. Yeah, I think we'll go a little heavier on the beige here. Almost a little more careful than I planned to. I can go heavier. Stronger. Faster. Harder. Better. Faster. Stronger. Harder. Better. Faster. Stronger. Harder. Better. Faster. Stronger. Alright. A bit more in the chest. Yeah, that's feeling more what I'm going for. Cool. Interesting, this mottled dark gray and beige. This is a very interesting color scheme, actually. Not where I would have originally gone if you'd told me how to do it. But now that I see it, I like it. And it's different. It's evocative. It makes you wonder, why are they like that? Is that intentional? Yes. Okay, good. And then the next one, okay, I'm going to go even heavier on the beige. I'm going to more or less, this one might be the mostly beige knoll. And we'll see what that does. We'll see how I like it. Again, this might be the only knoll with this much beige on it. I should give them little black noses. That'd be funny. So I'm still not slathering on the beige. Like, I'm not doing a completely full coat of the beige here, but I'm definitely doing a lot of beige. I want this to be 90% or maybe 80% beige. And look at that. We will see what we have. One of the things I like about painting minis is that you can be experimental. No one's watching my back to say, oh, well, it's not the way I would do it. Like, I know. That's the fun. Is that I'm doing it the way I want to do it. And this is a case where, obviously, there are things where you your way, well, sometimes you want to do things the way other people want it because they're the ones paying the money, for example. But no one's paying for this. No one's expecting this. There's no disappointment potential. I could do something that my players look at and say, that's weird. But all things considered, this is kind of my choice. Yeah, this beige is nice. I may go back to those other ones and give it a little more beige. What's also interesting is as you get used to this and used to the geometry of the figure, you realize, oh, that's what that's supposed to be. Like that's not just his leg; he has a little thing there. These guys have little like anklets on them, which is quite cool. Not a thing you see a lot in a lot of monster design, a lot of creature design. Is that kind of thing. So let's get the sides painted up with that beige. Like I said, I'm looking for maybe 80% coverage with this beige, and I'll look at it and see if that kind of makes sense, if that looks good. May want to go even higher or lower. Let's see. Oh yeah, I don't need to brush up every single inch of this because I know now where some of these bits are. Okay, the head. Let me brush the one off. Alright. Underside of the head. Good. Alright. So here's our knoll with a lot of coverage. I like that. I know it's blurry, but just look at the color. That's good. That's quite good. Okay, yeah. I think I'm gonna stay with this idea, and I might even go further. I might, yeah, I think I'm gonna go with more or less full coverage on this next to last one. There will undoubtedly be a little bit of gray peeking through in spots, but I'm just gonna go really deep on this beige here, or plenty of coverage on the beige without totally slathering it on. And I think that's gonna be cool. And then for the last one, I will change this color a bit. I will mix in maybe a darker brown just to give the last one some variation. And I might even get even crazier and use some of that color to add some highlights to the others to give them some variation. Some russet spots basically, or some other signs that they are different, distinct. How are we doing on time? Ooh, we're over time. That's okay. I like Workshop Wednesday to go for quite some time. I'm fine with a multi-hour, over 2-hour Workshop Wednesday. Because it takes time to make things. And that is just more or less a truism. And I want to spend the time to make it, to really make these things, make them right, so to speak. Quality. Give them some quality. And folks can always come back. And also, I missed, okay, Daffo, you got it, Kamdoko. Well done. I missed half an hour with that phone call. So it's less than 2 hours, really, I've been doing this. Okay. Do that, do this. Do that in there. Again, kind of trying to get coverage everywhere. Alright, and then we'll go down and do the legs. And the feet. And let's see what this ends up as. I think these will look very nice once completed. Especially with all these little details, the anklets, the loincloth, the armor on the side. Like, that's just... it's gonna make these characters pop. Is having all that. Oh, I gotta do the tail. Got the tail. Gonna make them really look distinctive. And really, if you're facing bad guys, you want them to be distinctive. You want them to be memorable. You want to think back and go, gosh, that was freaky. Like, I was really afraid for my character's life. Like, yep, you should have been. That is a correct reaction to nasty monsters. And remember, I mean, monsters in like D&D are really callbacks to just beasts, to wolves, and things like that. That's really all a monster is a dangerous creature that people told stories about. So you definitely, you want these things to be the kind of scary creatures that parents would tell their children about at night. Say, don't go outside, or the gnolls might get you. Give them a nice amount of paint. Fortunately, they are covering up their naughty bits, because while it might be a little silly, why would they care? I don't really want to look at the a gnoll's junk, right? Like, I don't need to spend any time looking about or thinking about that. And of course, again, in this case, that would be non-functional anyway. All right. So there we go. There's our heavily beiged gnoll warrior. Like I said, I like that color scheme. I'm pleased with that. Hey. That's good to know. So yeah. Okay. So I think I'm gonna go back. Some of these guys, and especially as they dry, they're drying pretty. Yeah, I'm gonna go back and give him a slightly heavier coat of beige, right? Significantly heavier coat of beige, as the case may be. And just let them stand out more. I like the idea of them being more beige than that dark blue. Still have that dark blue as kind of a base peeking out. Oops. Falling all over myself. It's always helpful to have a... It's not always helpful, but it can be very interesting to combine different concepts. To say, okay, I'm taking that weird skin of the official monster manual, and also combining it with the actual color scheme of real hyenas to get something interesting. Now, again, another DM might say, look, I want my hyenas to look unnatural. I don't want them to have that beige coloration, because the idea is when the demon lord Yinogu spawned these things, he wanted to make them look different. Like they should be colored weirdly. Okay, that's a perfectly fair way of approaching it. We can all have our different interpretations of that, our own different takes. And, 5 years from now, if I'm painting more Knoll miniatures, I may have a completely different take on this. That is fine too. Realize, now that I thought about it, now that I've played some games with these, maybe we do something a little different. Like I said, that is kind of the name of the game, is creativity and imagination. And so there is no definitive right answer for all time, and that's part of what makes it fun. And these things can be reinterpreted. You know, Knolls have changed a lot over the editions, over the different versions of D&D, as folks have come up with different interpretations of them. One of the reasons I love these Knolls is that they are different interpretations, and the people came back and said, they took things that were pretty generic back in the day and said, how can we punch this up? And they finally come up with this concept. I'm like, that's it. Those are my Knolls. Those are the Knolls I love. Alright. Those are the Knolls that make sense to me. They're not just yet another bad guy. Yet another sort of humanoid, nasty creature. No, these things do not have civilization. They do not make villages. They do not live in villages. They don't trade. They don't farm. They don't do any of that stuff. They don't settle down. They have engines of destruction. All right. Then, like I said, we're going to go ahead and add a little something to this. I have a dark brown over here. Somewhere. I'm going to tint this up with a dark brown. And that'll be the color of our other gnome. Knoll, excuse me, not gnome. Yeah. A little darker. Significantly darker. But not enough to really feel like it's a really wildly different color. Alright. Cool. And then, like I said, I will probably take the same color and brush it on maybe the first Knoll to give him some color variation. So they'll all have some slight variations to their color scheme. You can go much wilder with this, of course. Some very light beige, some dark beige, some russet colored, some white furred, whatever. That would be a lot of fun, depending on how much time you want to put into this. And how varied you want all of your little Knoll minis. That's a very, very valid thing to do. But for me, I'm just starting here. Right. One thing I like about brushing on very broadly with the brush is that you get these variations in color, which allows a little bit of the other paint to come through. And like I said, this adds another layer of variation to these, another layer of detail. I think these guys technically carry spears, which you're supposed to print separately, and man, it is not easy to 3D print small, thin objects like that. I think it's doable. It's not hard per se, but it's definitely I mean, it's hard. It's not impossible. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't know how much effort I want to put into making that look. So printing those out, having them not break, and all that stuff. Alright, give him his tail. Legs. inside there. Got a little bit of support material that ended up sticking to the inside of this one. So I want to make sure I at least get that coverage with some color. And suggest, okay, it's just there's some fur that's sticking down or something. Doesn't matter that much. Especially again, this is, you know, this is something you do for fun with your friends. I'm not getting paid for this. So the fact that it doesn't look maybe exactly the way one might envision it is not a big deal. Be interesting to have see what happens. My player characters are now high enough level that gnolls are less of a direct challenge, a direct threat. You know, an individual gnoll is not a big deal to them, but quite a few of them would be a problem. The issue you have, as a story becomes more plot-driven and such, that it becomes harder to justify bringing in, you know, purely chaotic, destructive creatures like this. Once the characters are, and they're now about 11th level, they've been through a lot, and the plot is now, again, heavy enough that they're not going to have kind of random encounters with gnolls in general. It just doesn't make sense for a big save the world plot to have these sort of guys hanging around. They're punks basically, right? All right. So that's actually a very, very close color to the existing stuff. So I'm not going to use that color. I'm going to go ahead and throw in a bunch more dark brown. Get that one there. And use that, brush that on the other guy. I can almost go with just that straight brown, actually. In fact, what I might do, I might essentially make this the color. Yeah, I'm going to take this guy that has very little of the beige on him. Over here. Yeah. Seem to like it over here. I'm going to take him and give him a fairly heavy coat of this darker brown, darker beige. I'm kind of going away from the lighter beige of the regular gnolls, but that's okay. If I'd really thought about this, I probably would have gone lighter than darker. But we can have a darker furred and gnoll. And hyenas do vary. Their skin tone, like they're not necessarily all that dark. So maybe this gets into that idea of, oh, well, maybe when gnolls are created, their fur does darken somewhat to indicate how the god has changed them. You might go there. Up to you. And the nice thing about this is you get a little bit of the other beige in bits and pieces around there. It gives them some nice variability in color scheme. You can end up with a lot of this brown unused. It's unfortunate. Now go ahead and color in the head, flip it around, and get in here. This darker color. And I'm going for like 90% coverage on this. A little bit maybe of the old colors peeking through. But with this brown very much predominating. You might want to cover some spots here. Okay, no. Backs of the legs. Ooh, they could actually use. I barely covered the legs with the old color, so that's That's good. I have a little more coverage on that. And legs there. And then the tail. The tail, I'll go pretty heavy with the brown. I think. Yeah. I'm liking this. This feels very Knoll-like. Which is kind of the point. A little more inside. Cover up any weird little bits. And if you do have little bits of plastic in there, the darker the better. We'll tend to hide them. Okay. Yeah. There on the sides. It's easy to forget the sides. Okay, so I'll come back later on and paint up around there. And I'll get the armor and such. Okay, good. So there's that mini with the extra that dark. You can see it's not quite as dark as the other one. There's a little bit of the other one, the other color coming through. There's good variations. And now what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to try something kind of crazy. Let's just go crazy. I'm going to dot him with brown. Polka dot. That is actually what hyenas look like, because they have that brown spotting. And I'm just going to do it and see what happens. It might end up looking kind of like lesions, especially at this level of detail. But, heck. It's worth a try. You can just look. I'm not going to pull it up. But yeah, it's basically all over their bodies. So, let me just try this in little spots all over him. And he's actually got quite a lot of variation. He's got a lot of that gray peeking through. Here, up here. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give him a dark brown sort of mane up there. I'm going to make that all nice and brown. I find hair color, even if it's not really hair, is one of the nice ways of differentiating creatures. Like it does give them that, oh, you know, he looks a little different. He's one I got to watch out for. Yeah. So those spots, even though you can't see them very well, it's actually kind of nice. It does add some sense of variation to them, some sense of difference, and okay, yes, there's something going on there. So this may not show up at all. We've got some sort of polka dot spots. I'm not thrilled with it, but it works. I do not think I'll go back to the others and give them all a bunch of these spots, but I'll put them on the one, and then yeah, it's a good place to start and say, okay, this is my first time trying to paint spots on a creature like this. That's fine. All right, good. So there are all of our knolls. Let's go back. I'm going to switch out these. These exam gloves do not have powder in them. That's what's going on. I'm used to the powdered gloves. That's why I'm getting all sweaty. And I'm having trouble getting on multiple gloves. Okay. At least I know. Gotta be a little more careful with that. Okay. Yeah, that's a problem. Alright, I may have to replace these with something else. So, go back to our fairim. Our green fairim. And let's go ahead and give him the second coat. And see how good that is. Ooh, wow. This is so thin. How thin is it? It's going to need at least 3 coats. Wow. That sparkliness is neat, though. I like the fact that we've given it that sparkliness. You know, though, the more that I look at this, I kind of like the red interior on it. Like the sort of the red coming through is this very interesting color variation. Definitely not Christmassy, even though it's red and green. But it's weird. It's bizarre. So the more I look at it, the more I'm not horrified with the idea of having a little bit of that red show through. Gotta think about that. I'll wait until it's dried, and we're not gonna sit around here and wait for all that. And we'll see. That might be something I play around with, color-wise. You know, just add detail to it with this amount of green. Make sure we get down there. I want to make sure you get all of the spots. It's easy when you're doing this to forget down around the edges. That just really finishes off the miniature nicely. And obviously we'll go back and fix that, the stones around it. Yeah, that's actually a really cool sense of the color. Let me see if I can get it to focus in. It's gonna be hard. Whoa! So I'm gonna throw it everywhere. Okay, there we go. Kind of focusing in. There we are. So yeah, you see it has this interesting aspect to it where there's just that little hint of red shining through. I like that. Yeah. Okay. Exactly, like translucence of skin with some blood underneath. That's perfect for the Faerun, because they are weird, extraplanar beings that don't really conform to normal anatomy. So I'm actually thinking I'm going to go back in and like add tips under these, like maybe white onto the tips of all of those weird protuberances, but cool. Alright, I think that will do it for us for tonight. That was some fun painting, some fun playing around with molding and casting. And hopefully next week I'll be able to work on that electronics project. Got to do a little bit more planning and prep and go through all of my materials. I realized that electronics requires a little bit more planning. Like I'm pretty sure I bought all the equipment, but I need to make sure everything's there and I've got the wiring and all that stuff prepped. So I'll make sure that I'm prepped for next week, and we'll hopefully build that little rolling ball. We will see. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. Thank you all for joining me for this wonderful ride that is Geek Archaeology. And we'll have more on Friday. Remember, stop by the Discord and ask me questions for this Friday, for the special Q&A episode. And I will try to answer every question I get. And if you don't get a chance to stop by the Discord, still stop by on Friday. You may win something. And you can ask me questions then, and I'll try to answer them then as well. So, thank you all very much, as always. See ya.